What it do, family and friends? Welcome back to the Church of Black Power. This broadcast, I want to talk about the messaging because there's a lot of different articles, there's a lot of different news broadcasts going out, and a lot of them are sounding exactly the same. We forced them to admit that Black Americans aren't rocking with the Democratic Party. More and more of us is straying away from the Democratic Party. More and more of us see that we're being abused by the Democratic Party. And so, the Democrats are forced to send out their puppets, their coons, their meat sticks, and, meat suits. And they send these people out, their shills, to try and convince Black Americans that we're just so ignorant we don't know what has been done by Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. They think that telling us a bunch of nonsensical bull stuff will change our minds. But they're seeing more and more that this isn't happening. They're seeing more and more that we're standing on business. We're standing on our square. And they don't like it. They don't know what to do with it. And so they have these meat suits, these puppets, sit on live television and talk about a bunch of nothing when it comes to why Black Americans aren't rocking with the Democratic Party like we usually would. They try to make it about everything else except for what we ourselves have already told them. What we've ourselves have been talking about for the past 10 to 15 years. Reparations, transformative policies within the Black communities. Oh, they don't want to hear any of that. They want to tell you about school. They want to tell you about voting rights as if Black Americans can't go and get a freaking identification card to go and actually vote. They want you to believe these things are for you. I don't know about y'all, but I've never had a problem voting. I've never had a problem in any state that I was in. I'm in Texas now. I don't have a problem voting. But they would like you to believe, would like our community to believe, that they are doing this for you. They want to give you hip hop museums and hip hop holidays and a bunch of symbolic nonsense. Then get on national television and tell the world that I just think that there's a messaging problem. No, there's not a messaging problem. The message is clear, loud and clear. The message is loud and clear. That y'all don't give a damn about the Black community, but y'all think we should gift you our votes. And our message to you is that is a fat chance. That ain't happening. It's a new day. Yes, it is. The Negroes that you knew from before is no longer strolling the streets. The mindset of the Black man and woman has changed due to the George Floyd effect. And I'll be doing a broadcast on the George Floyd effect as well. So look out for that. But the minds are changing. So you can't just come in and say any old thing no more. You can't just come in and say any old thing anymore. Because the black community isn't falling for any old thing anymore. I believe it was Malcolm X who said, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. We standing on business. We standing for our reparations. We're standing for the generational wealth to be flipped. We're standing on all of this. So they keep on bringing us a bunch of nonsense, and it's falling to the wayside. And it's falling to the wayside. I got a few clips here we're going to run through. And I want to show that no matter where you're getting your information from, whether it's Fox, whether it's MSNBC, it doesn't matter, left or right. The messaging is absolutely the same. The script is absolutely the same. It is absolutely the same. So let's get into these clips and then we'll talk about them.
This podcast episode featured black voters expressing their hesitation to re-elect Joe Biden. Watch.
You know, what have they done for me? You know, the Republican Party can give me these tax cuts and give me this and give me that. It boils down to like those type of issues.
I still have tons of student loan debt, so he's not getting my vote.
I honestly feel that the Democratic Party has forgot about the black male.
But it's not just that podcast. A recent poll finds Biden with record high disapproval among black and Hispanic voters in key battleground states. Here to react, Republican voter David Cipher and independent voter Kim Brown. Thank y'all so much for joining the program today. So I did this podcast around the Thanksgiving table, a black family, black community members, and the one thing they're talking about is the black male voters. So I got to ask you, brother, what do you think is driving black males to consider Donald Trump over the traditional Democratic Party?
Yes.
That's another thing that I wanted to mention. On one side, you have, and this is what Fox has been doing. Fox is making it look like, and a lot of right wingers is making it look like black men are leaving the Democratic Party for Trump, when that's truly not what's happening. What we're seeing is black voters and black males beginning to disengage from the Democratic Party. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go vote for Trump. Now, there are some people, like some people out in Chicago, who really wants to vote for Trump because they want Trump to do a mass deportation. Excuse me. However, that does not mean that the mass majority of black males are looking to Trump to vote for him. No. If anything, and they're going to say this over and over again, that's why I want you to understand the messaging. If anything, we're going to disengage from the whole process and let shit happen the way it falls. Let the dominoes fall the way they may. So I just wanted to throw that real quick.
First of all, I thank you for inviting me on the show. The recent poll suggests that a small but rising number of black Democratic voters are turned off by Joe Biden's messaging. This messaging is not resonating with him like they used to. Also, there is a perception that they are being left behind. There is a perception that
I just want to say this as well. It's not that we don't agree with the messaging. We agree with the messaging because the messaging is actually saying we don't give a damn about black voters. We don't give a damn about how you feel. We don't give a damn what your community needs. So we agree with the messaging because we don't want to be lied to about this stuff. We're absolutely glad that the messaging is what it is. Because if it wasn't, if it was some of the Obama bull stuff, then black Americans would probably be lullabied. They would be lullabied into voting for these people. But since the messaging is very clear and it resonates with us because the message is clear, there won't be any lullabies to the poll. It won't be any sleeping when it comes to this election cycle. Everybody's wide awake listening, ears wide open. Let's get that clear.
Their concerns are no longer addressed, and there are growing issues. Like you look at the
When has it ever been addressed? Any of our concerns? Okay.
migrant crisis in Chicago, where they diverted funds and ruined state coffers to accommodate the migrants, and then tried to put them in lower income communities where resources are already stretched. So when you take the not resonating message with the post-COVID crime, with the migrant crisis, those things lead to ongoing frustrations.
Yeah. Kim, it's a little bit different for black women. They're not giving the Republican Party quite a shot, but they're willing to stay at home. And also, I learned in the podcast, a lot of black women.
Notice how they just tried to throw a wedge up in there by saying, well, we're not saying the same thing with black women. Black women are more likely to stay home. See how you just did that? When the truth is, both are more likely to stay home. Both are more likely to not engage with the cynicalness within the Democratic Party. Not one or the other. And that's what they do every election cycle. This is why Oprah just put out that New Color Purple crap. This is why the New Color Purple just came out. Because it is an election cycle. And they have to make sure that black women know that black men bad. Stay away from black men. Vote Democrat. You're the backbone of the Democratic Party. Black men bad. Just like every single election cycle. Divide and conquer. That was the only reason that New Color Purple was put out, remade and put out.
Disappointed with Kamala Harris. They wanted more. What are you seeing?
Well, I think
the
reason is I don't believe that a lot of people actually take Kamala Harris serious. I think when people view her on national television, she's not really hitting the marks that we expected her to hit. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to say that, African Americans will not support Joe Biden. But what I will say is that it will be a slippery slope depending on who his running mate is. Now, due to the...
No, it won't. It doesn't matter who your running mate is. If you ain't giving any tangibles to the black community, we ain't supporting you, period. There isn't no need for you to choose a different VP. That's not going to change a damn thing. It's not going to change a damn thing if you choose an entirely different VP. So the hell what? If we're not getting anything for our vote, I wouldn't give a damn if Trump was running with God. I wouldn't give a damn if Biden was running with God. Neither one of you is getting the vote. It's that plain, that simple.
The fact that we know that during election time, people say a lot of things. You have a lot of stump speeches. But at the end of the day, once they get elected, they sort of forget. And that's what's frustrating, not just to the Black Americans, but also to people in general. We're just no longer believing in this political system called, our federal government and how things are getting done.
Kim, you make such a great point. And David, part of the problem that you heard during the podcast is they said, listen, we only see them during election time. They made a lot of promises to us, and they're just not keeping it.
Yes, correct. That goes to the perception of feeling forgotten about, feeling left behind. And this is something that has been talked about on the ground for.
And notice, when they're discussing the actual issue of being left behind, the way they word it is the feeling, as if we're basically charged by emotion, as if there's not many of articles, studies, and polls that show that Black Americans are left behind, that our wealth is in tremendous trouble, and we're not going to be able to survive if something drastic doesn't happen. That's facts. It is not a feeling. It is not an emotion. Now, it might make you emotional, but it is not a feeling whatsoever.
Many years, and then you couple that, like I said, with the issues that's not getting done. There is rising crime spikes. There is rising crime spikes post COVID. Yep. There is the migrant crisis. There is rising inflation under Joe Biden. So you have all of these things that's working against lower income communities. So you couple that with the fact that, like you said, the attention goes away after election time. It's going to breed frustration over election cycles, and they will either sit this one out or make the decision to vote Republican.
It's such a good point. Kim, a lot of folks in the podcast talked about the elephant in the room, which is former President Barack Obama. And they said that he was good for the culture, but didn't deliver a lot on the issues for Black America as well. And now that he's gone, they don't have that shield of Barack Obama in the Democratic Party. So did they use Barack Obama as a crutch?
Well, let me say this. You used the term Barack Obama is gone. I don't think he's gone. I think he's somewhere in the secret pipeline, still making those important decisions or trying to make sure Biden does what he needs to do. So
trying to make sure that reparations doesn't come about. Trying to make sure that Black Americans vote for nothing, benign neglect. Don't promise them nothing. Don't offer them nothing. Just make sure they vote for you. That's what Obama's around doing. And that's why people are turned off from Obama. I actually seen a post on Twitter the other day, and it said, if Obama was to run again, how many people would vote for him in the Black community? And one of the things that I put, but the feeling was mutual when I was reading the comments, was it would be an easy loss if Obama was to run again. Period, point of blank. Don't matter who he's running with. Doesn't matter what he says or what he does. It would be an easy loss. And that's the facts.
Let's talk about crime for a second. We know that President Barack Obama comes from the south side of Chicago. Look at the era of Chicago and how much crime has grown. Now, when Barack Obama was in office, and even being out of office, there should have been some type of nurturing setting to where he would actually service people in Chicago. That didn't happen. You look at the crime.
Why the hell would that happen when he told Black Americans that that's not how America works, when he was pressured to release a bill that targets the Black community? So why would he go back to Chicago and then target crime or anything like that when he don't want to do anything specifically for the Black community? He already said that's not how America works. When he was asked, well, why not say this is for Black Americans? This is what I'm going to do for you. This is Obama. The black man that you guys love to cap for. Not you guys here, but you know what I mean. In the Democratic Party. These vote blue no matter whoers love to cap for Obama. But when you give them the point by point, you give them the blowback from what this man did in office to black Americans, then they literally, well, I just don't care. You know, he's black and he's my president, this, that, and the third. Selective ignorance is still ignorance. And it doesn't change anything in the community. Now you want to be some of the same people that are mad at Joe Biden were defending Barack Obama and still defends Barack Obama. Some of the same people that are mad at Joe Biden right now. And the only thing that I can say that Obama did that helped black people within his terms, his 2 terms, specifically helped black folk, was the mass deportation that he did. Number 1 president with the most deportations. I'll give him that much. But other than that, he wasn't here to help black Americans, especially when he came out of a white vagina. People keep forgetting about that situation. How do you get black power from a white vagina? Don't worry, I'll wait for that answer. Let's continue this.
Across the United States of America, it is growing, growing, and growing. And rather than people deal with crime, they're constantly putting a Band-Aid on crime, talking about programs. But let's be clear. I am not against programs, but what I am against is throwing good money after bad money.
That's
and people
right.
come up with programs that are not effective. And that is what's frustrating when you got the average citizen who can no longer walk down the street because as soon as they do, something tragedy may happen. And we shouldn't have to live like this. This is supposed to be the greatest country in the nation. And
now, when she was talking about programs, what her problem with programs should have been is that the programs aren't specifically geared towards the black community. Programs are fine. If there's money going into these programs in order to revigorate something within our community, yeah, that's fine. But they're not specifically targeted. They're not specifically targeted to the black community. But they specifically come to the black community in order to gain our vote. That's the problem with policy, with programs. Sister Soldier said it best with the programs, that these programs are not geared to our communities. And no matter what those programs do, the one thing they don't do is empower the community with funding, resources, or anything else like that. It just doesn't.
we are failing our American people every single day. And that is the frustration that Americans are feeling.
You're so right. You're so right. Look, David and Kim, I've been warning folks. I've been telling our audience, watch out for black voters. They're screaming right now. They're yours if you want to have them. I'm so glad this podcast came out and y'all.
They're yours if you want to have them. But you got to give us something to get us. We ain't about to just give you our vote for free. Don't matter whether we don't like this dude. We ain't running to Republicans just despite the Democrats. That's dumb. If you're not giving us something, guess what? Neither one of you getting it. But if you want the black community to vote for you, we're screaming, hey, give us something. And we got you. You can have the vote. You give us enough, we'll be happy with that. Then the next time around, you give us some more, and we'll be happy with that too. We'll be right there for you. But if you're not, guess what? We're not. Simple and plain.
Joined us this morning for the program. Thanks so much.
Now let's move on to this next one here. Now that was Fox. Okay? I want y'all to know that was Fox. The messaging has not changed. No matter what station you change it to, the message doesn't change. So let's move over to MSNBC.
Now, Congressman Stephen Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, who was also at that White House meeting, Cornell Belcher, MSNBC political analyst, pollster, and Democratic strategist, and Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Thank you all very much for coming to the Sunday Show. Congressman Horsford, you also attended that White House meeting. What more can you share about what was discussed?
Well, look, thank you for having me on, Jonathan. I think the Chairman Harrison laid it out well. Look, the black voters are the base of the Democratic Party, and we are the voters that secured the historic win for President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So it's imperative that the party, the president, this government, and the private sector included do what they need to do to ensure that black voices are heard in the federal government, on Capitol Hill, and in the boardrooms. And that's something the Congressional Black Caucus is working on every single day.
No, they're not. No, they're not. Every single day, the Congressional Black Talkers has been running around here capping and caping, putting on that cape for these illegal immigrants and for everybody else. And for everybody else. When Courtney and his wife, the black farmers out in Colorado Springs, was dealing with anti-black domestic terrorism, where were any of these people? The CBC was contacted. No one said a word. The NAACP was basically forced to come out due to the black grassroots, us, making it go viral, calling the FBI and calling different senators and calling different representatives, asking why is no one speaking about the situation that's going on with the black farmers in Colorado Springs. Where are any of these people? And it's so easy for them to say that the black community is the base of the Democratic Party. But it's so tough for them to say what we've told them and instructed them to say, which is we want our reparations. We want transformative policies for our community. We want funding in our communities directly to the hands of black Americans. So I don't want to hear crap this Looney Tune dude wants to say or has to say about them running around trying to speak for us. They ain't been doing jack. Neither one of them. Not one of them.
Because we understand that black lives matter, and so do our voices when it comes to our democracy.
Mm-hmm. All right, Cornell, you are the pollster, and you pointed out on Twitter that there is a false narrative being pushed by the media that black men are embracing Trumpism.
Now, I want everybody to listen to this because he's about to explain everything that I already explained to you guys. However, as black men, we already know this. I find very few black men talking about support for Trump. Unless they're talking about Chicagoans, because I've talked to a lot of Chicagoans who are supporting Trump due to the deportation situation. They want that mass deportation. And unless you like high figures in your income, because let's face it, Trump gives breaks to, businesses and things like that. So these are the only two times I I've heard, I don't want to say 2 times, 2 topics I've heard black people even thinking about or considering to vote for Trump for. And it's not a lot of black people. It's a very, very tiny amount.
I find that hard to believe. Explain.
Why do you find it hard to believe? It's in the data, right? If you look at over the last 4 decades, black men voting pattern has been fairly consistent, right? Going back to 76, you've got 14% of African Americans African American men who vote Republican. And if you look at the validated research of voting that Pew does, look, in 2022, 6% of African American men voted Republican. So I think there's a lot of hay being made about some data from polls that are actually not representative. But I've also seen this before. So I'm always suspect of why you're trying to drive a wedge between black men and trying to set black men up as scapegoats. When you look at actual voting, not the polls, but actual voting, there is only a 7% difference between how black men vote and black women vote. It is the narrowest difference between any of the major demographic groups.
So what they're doing now, and what he's basically telling the Democratic Party to do, is stop playing this game where they're trying to segregate the black man from the black woman when it comes to our voting, because you're going to lose. This narrative is going to force you to lose over and over again, because the facts of the matter will always show and outshine the nonsense in the matter. And literally, the people who aren't even looking deep into politics, who hear the Democratic Party talk about how black women are the base, or how black men have broke bad and have become Republicans and this, that, and the third, all you doing is turning off more and more black folk who knows that to be false. We're not stupid. But let them tell it, we're stupid as hell.
So the pick on black men, like black men are just dramatically different than black women, is a false narrative. Now, let me lean into what the chairman had to say, right? And the truth of the matter is, Congressman, Chairman Stephen Horsford, they have fought and passed a lot of great legislation that impact African Americans, particularly African American men.
But notice, whenever people say this, and you're going to hear this several times throughout these different clips that I'm going to be playing, whenever someone says that something's been done, they can't and they don't. Let me say that again. They can't or they don't mention what those things actually are and how it benefits the black community directly. Not no rising tides lift all ships shenanigan bull stuff. None of that. No one is able to articulate what has been done and how it benefits us.
The problem is, K-Part, is when I sit in focus groups, the African Americans, particularly African American men, they have no idea. They have no idea that criminal justice reform was passed. They have no idea that voting rights was passed, and they fought so hard for it.
Criminal justice reform that I know of have not been passed. Even if you want to look at an example, I just did a broadcast last week about the Tale of Two Americas, Jonathan Majors. Concrete evidence. Concrete evidence. But the DA still prosecuted the victim. Tossed out the case on the actual offender and made it very clear that they wasn't going to charge the offender, who is a white woman, by the way. There are several instances of black men and women going into these court systems, going to these courtrooms, and getting the worst of all times. So where's the criminal justice reform? Where? Where did you see Biden's DOJ come down and start charging any and everybody who shows themselves to actually be an anti-black racist when it comes to people inside of the law enforcement? When have you seen that? When have you seen Biden sign a hate crime bill for black Americans? Like I said, you'll say certain things that doesn't apply to us. It's not applicable. It's not applicable. So, and then he talked about voting rights. Like I said, we don't give a damn about voting rights. We already have voting rights. We already have the ability to go and get an identification card, go into a voting booth, and vote. So the things that you're mentioning, people don't care about. And the things we do care about, y'all try your hardest not to mention until someone brings it up to you, and then you try to stray away from that.
And to your question that you gave, the chairman, DNC chairman, is what I would say is that not only must you say that we fought to get these things passed, black men, you have to use your power to actually punish those who are standing in the way of getting these things passed.
And which we're doing. Exactly what we're doing. Punishing the Democratic Party because for over 60 years, they've been in the way of passing legislation for us. The Republicans is one thing, but when you are a part of a party where your own party is against you, you got to do something about it. And that's exactly what we're doing. Holding these Republicans, holding these Democrats, holding them all responsible. The only difference is we don't vote majority Republican. So you don't see us hammering down on Republicans as much. But we still hold them responsible for the things that they say and the things that they do. But when it comes to the Democratic Party, that's our party. We're the base of that party. And when the base is demanding something, and the party in itself is rejecting that base for over 60 years, then things must change. And it's up to the base to change it.
It's a messaging and a resource conversation. And I would argue that we have not spent enough resources actually messaging specifically to African Americans.
It's a messaging and a resource conversation. No, motherfucker, it's a resource conversation. Excuse my French, but it's a resource conversation. It is not a messaging conversation. We don't need any messages. What we need is the funding. We need the resources. We've already told you what we need. And with resources, with funding, everything else in our community can change. Education. We could pay for the best education. Medical situations. We could pay for the best medical care. Police brutality. If every black person got in life insurance, I guarantee you, police brutality would go down. If every black person demands that hate crime bill, I guarantee you it goes down. And if every black person demands that anybody that we put into office signed a bill saying that when a police officer murders a black citizen, then their pension is gone, goes directly to the families of that black citizen. If you're not offering things like that, we don't care. We do not care what your message is. Our message to you is cut the damn check. Drop off the bag. Or are you going to lose? Democrats? And it's going to take a whole lot of stuff to turn around that mindset when you lose. You're going to have to come to us hat in hand and promise everything. And even then, we might not even believe you. Because we gave you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised to see black Americans switch parties and go green. Because we don't fuck with the Democrats, we don't fuck with the Republicans. But I'm going to be honest with you, we don't really fuck with the Green Party either. They're basically the same damn thing too. But maybe we'll go off and start black wing. Instead of left wing or right wing, we'll start the black wing. And that'll be our political party. That'll be us voting on block as a block.
Particularly African-American men.
And I just want to be clear. When I said I didn't believe it, I didn't believe that black men would support Trumpism. I'm with you. I'm with you on that, Cornell. Please, internets, don't at me.
And black men are not supporting Bidenomics either. And black men are not supporting Bidenomics either.
Just to be clear. Now, Latasha, you are in it. In Black Voters Matter, you are in it. You are in the community. You are talking to folks. You are hearing from them. Why is there this big drop from the 87% of black vote that the president got in 2020 to seeing 62% in that Morning Consult Bloomberg poll? Is it a real thing that the president's hold on black voters is slipping?
You know, I think Biden has a burden that's bigger than Biden. And what I mean by that is that black voters, when I'm talking to black people, they're very concerned about the environment. It's not just in what has been passed. People are saying, what are you going to do for me now? In addition to that, there's a lot of, when we know that a lot of young voters and first-time voters engaged in the process because they wanted to see criminal justice reform. That simply has not happened. We also knew that a lot of people that we talked to were interested in voting rights.
Notice, she's parroting, they're all parroting each other. She just spoke about how most new voters want to see criminal justice reform. But yet, this other brother, right before her, said that black men don't know that criminal justice reform has been passed. So which is it? Has it been passed or has it not been passed?
And making sure voting rights legislation was passed. That hasn't happened. In addition to that, that there has to be the metrics. I think there's a disconnect in terms of the metrics in which sometimes the party uses as the metrics of success and how people see success. So while there is a low unemployment rate, there's a lot of economic anxiety among black voters that I'm talking to that are interested in literally what does this mean economically in this kind of environment where they're seeing the rise of racism, when they're seeing the destruction of affirmative action and those kind of programs, that leads a certain level of uncertainty of what our economic future is.
Now, nothing she said is anything close to what we're saying. Cut the check. We don't care about voters' rights. Cut the check. That's it. That's simple. They're so afraid to talk about reparations. But they're parroting each other because they don't have another talking point. Man, I wonder how much they pay Roland Martin to use his talking point. It's a messaging problem. The Democrats have a messaging problem. Roland Martin was the first person I heard say that nonsense. And now it's all over the web. All over mainstream, lamestream media. It's a messaging problem. Black Americans just don't know what's been done for them. This is how stupid they think we are.
You know, Latasha, let me stick with you before we go to a break. You know, the President Biden's mantra, and I think it's a terrific mantra, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. But if...
No, we're going to compare you to what you did in the last 4 years. For the people who put you into office. The base that put you into office. That's what we're going to judge you on. That's what we're going to compare you on. Compare you to. From 2020, when you came into office, to 2024, what have you done for the base of your party?
If that alternative is Trump or any Republican, given all the things that haven't happened from the black voters' perspective, is there any way that those voters would either vote for the Republican, or is the bigger danger they stay home?
Notice, they keep telling you that they know that we're going to end up staying home. It's like the third time someone's mentioned this and said it.
You know, I think the biggest danger is staying home. I think that black voters are actually more sophisticated than the media likes to give us credit for, that we're very pragmatic voters. And so at the end of the day, will there be a run to Trump? Absolutely not.
I love the way that she said, I think that black voters are more sophisticated than we give them credit for. But before she said that, she tried to make it seem like the things that she mentioned is what black voters have been talking about and what we're concerned about. But then you turn around and say that we're more sophisticated than we're given credit for. You see, you can't entice me by using words unless you're actually giving me something within those words. And you can't sit here and tell me some nonsense with your words and then turn around and give me a backhand compliment right after. But they're not smart enough to know that. She's not sophisticated enough to know that.
I think what we'll see is people be so discontented with the process that they're so frustrated that they'll disengage. And so that's the bigger issue. And I think there are three things that we got to do. One, it has to be more money. You have to make sure that they have a message. And I think I agree with Cornell exactly, that there has to be a message that's tailored directly to certain constituency groups. And that you have to make sure that you're lifting up, you have your messengers who is actually giving the message. When we're looking at television ads, that's not going to get it. That is not where a lot of people in the communities that we're talking to get their news from, or actually get the newest information around what Biden has done. And I think that those are going to be the three things that he's going to have to do going forward to get the bill to support that.
No, what he's going to have to do is actually break off the bag, open up that checkbook. We don't care about any of that stuff at all. And with the situation with the illegal immigrants eating up all the resources of the black community, we really aren't giving a damn what Biden says or do if there is no funding attached to it for the black community. And I mean from checkbook to hand. That's just that. Now we're going to take a brief non-commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get to the part 2 of this clip, because it is, like I said, it's hilarious how delusional these people truly are. How delusional these people truly are.
Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. He was the star of Black Panther that died today at the age of 43.
I'm always ready for a war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same. I got a dream. One thing. We gonna work it out. One thing. We gonna work it out. One thing. We gonna work it out. In a world of internet lights, we all look for love.
You're listening and tuning into
the station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
best music. Classic radio. Broadcasting live.
They say doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is insanity. I say it's stupidity. We as Black Americans have been voting for the Democrats with over 90% of our votes going to them for the past 60 years. And what do we have to show for it? I'll tell you, we are 15 to 20% of the population, but nearly 60% of the homeless. We have aborted over 20 million of our Black babies. Our wealth is heading backwards, and we own less homes now than we did during Jim Crow. I'm not saying vote for the Republicans. I'm saying don't vote for any party. Vote for good policies. If anyone comes to us and they ask for or demand the Black vote, you tell them to show me your Black policies.
I am Greg Marcel Dixon, and I approve this message.
All right, family, welcome back. And we're going to finish out these last clips. And then I'm going to give you my final thoughts. So let's get into it.
Back with me, Congressman Stephen Horsford, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Cornell Belcher, MSNBC political analyst, pollster, and Democratic strategist, and Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. All right, everybody. Listen to what Trump had to say at a rally in New Hampshire yesterday.
Now, I want y'all to pay attention to what was said by Trump and then how they tried to flip what he said and make it seem like it's going to target Black Americans.
Restore law and order to our communities, and I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical, out of control, fake, crooked prosecutor in America for their illegal, racist, in reverse enforcement of the law. I am also going to indemnify all police officers.
Now, y'all heard that. Now, that's a problem. Yes. However, listen to how they spin it and make it like, okay, well, now he's going to come after you guys.
I mean, it's chilling. I want all of you to respond, but Latasha, you go first. To my mind, just weaponizing DOJ is one thing, but indemnifying law enforcement, to me, he just put a target on all of our backs.
Absolutely. One, let's call it what it is. It's fascism at its finest. The bottom line is this is his dog whistle. This is the race. He has decided to weaponize race. He's decided to weaponize enforcement and violence. That is what actually he believes is his claim to fame of actually being the support behind him and using white supremacy and this whole notion of literally creating a police state to be able to advance his campaign. And so that's why I think that the sophistication of black voters, that's why I do not believe in any way that he will garner more support from black voters. I do think it is important for us to not take for granted what the alternative is, but I think it's really important for us to understand how dangerous he is.
Cornell?
Well, first, let me start by saying I want a Christmas at Latasha's house because the Christmas tree and the fireplace is absolutely killing
I know.
But what I also say is thank you. Thank you, Donald Trump, for saying the quiet part out loud, because this is actually what we need to mobilize our base of voters. He's also been on record saying that he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. And I can let, Congressman Horsford tell you what that entails, but the outcome is not good for black and brown people if he invokes the Insurrection Act. He's telling us he's going to be, in fact, a fascist on day one. And look, from a messaging standpoint, on the campaign standpoint, there's fear and there's hope. And that's sort of the basis of human nature sort of driving. There's fear and there's hope. We gave people a lot of hope in 2008.
And what happened with that hope? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Black Americans suffered because we were stupid enough to hope good things would happen for us. And they're talking about Trump as if we haven't dealt with the police being indemnified already. Damn near every president has protected the police. Obama passed a Blue Lives Matter bill. Obama passed that. So what are we looking at here? What are we even talking about?
But there's a lot of fear to actually be invoked right now because this man is telling you he's going to end democracy. And Capehart, I know you know this, but I don't think enough for our folks out there understand this. Black and brown people, you will not survive well if this man takes away our rights and ends democracy in this country.
They're going to end democracy. They're going to end democracy. They're going to end democracy. Okay. What has Biden done? Because I could have swore he's breaking the law as a sitting president by allowing these illegals to bum rush the borders and by funding them. I could have swore that that's against the Constitution. I could have swore these Democrats in Chicago just took away the right for the citizens to vote on whether they want Chicago or Illinois to be a sanctuary for these illegals. That's not taking away democracy. I could have swore Eric Adams in New York has literally been funding billions upon billions of dollars to these same illegals. That's not ending our democracy when we're sitting there telling the people that's supposed to be representing us that we don't want this. Like I said, they try to fearmonger, but on both sides, you're seeing the same thing. But yet we should be afraid of Trump. Trump ain't gonna do nothing he ain't already did in the first term. And he ain't gonna do nothing that Biden hasn't already done. And vice versa. And vice versa.
Those are the stakes for this upcoming election.
Mm-hmm. And Congressman Horsford, I'd love to get your reaction to that, but also how the CBC's urging of corporate America to reaffirm its commitment to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, is vital to thwarting what we heard Trump say, but also why it's important for corporate America to take it seriously.
Well, first, Donald Trump told us in 2016, he came to Black America and he said, what do you have to lose? And then he appointed an extreme, out-of-touch, ultra-conservative Supreme Court that answered that question by taking away fundamental rights.
By fundamental rights, are you speaking about the affirmative action that benefited 1 in 3 Black Americans? Excuse me, let me rephrase that. That's not true. 1 in 3 Black people at every college was Black American. So it didn't benefit Black Americans. It was benefiting white women overall. Then it was benefiting other groups who claim minority. But when it comes to Black folk, 1 out of 3 was Black American, which means 2 to 1, the program benefited foreign Blackness. People who might be Black, but not from this country. Not from the lineage of American slavery. And then you said abortion rights, which don't affect us. Black folks don't care about abortion rights. We don't. So what was it that the Supreme Court has done and taken away? What is it?
Rights for women to have reproductive justice, rights for students to be able to access college on an equal basis, access for small businesses to thrive, and access to the ballot box. And that is why I agree with your panel this morning that the real issue is the need to focus on the 80% of the Democratic base, which are Black voters, to turn them out and to make sure that the resources, the message, and the messengers are in place to do that.
And I'm just spitballing here, you can actually provide resources to the Black community, and then we'll come out. I think that sounds more reasonable. I don't care about you giving resources to people to become messengers. I don't care about you giving resources to people to be able to do ads for you. What we care about is resources for the Black community. Black Americans, to be more specific.
I lead the Congressional Black Caucus. We are the largest membership in our history with 60 members, 30.
That ain't been doing jack for the Black community in all the time that you've been there. Who speaks for everyone else but the Black community until it's election season.
1 Black women, 29 Black men, representing 120 million Americans across the country, 20 million Black Americans. And we're...
You don't represent us. You do not represent us. Because representatives would mimic who he represents. Not the other way around. We are not supposed to mimic them. They're supposed to mimic us as representatives.
We're fighting alongside the Biden-Harris administration every day to protect the fundamental rights of all communities, but specifically Black America. And that is why we issued a letter to corporate America this week, calling on them to reaffirm their commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, in the communities where they operate, and in the larger society to address racial inequities after George Floyd, and to work with us to close the racial wealth gap, which continues to widen. And we're not going to allow the tools of economic opportunity to be taken away from us, because that's something that Black voters also need.
When has the tools of economic success been even given to the Black community? Don't worry, I'll wait. When has the tools ever been given to us? You guys have leapfrogged the Black community with every other community, every chance that you get. And now you want to make it seem like it's important to you to close the racial wealth gap? Reparations then. It shouldn't be that hard for you to say reparations if y'all want to close the racial wealth gap. If that's something that you want, if you want Black Americans to have the actual tools necessary to be economically successful, it shouldn't pain you so much to say reparations and a transformative Black agenda. The agenda is reparations. The transformative Black agenda is different policies directed directly, specifically for Black Americans. That's it, that's all.
For us to create better jobs, to start new businesses, and to build wealth in our communities.
Latasha, I'm going to give you the last word in the less than a minute that we have left. If President Biden were to call you today, get you on the phone, what's the one thing you would tell him to do?
This ought to be good.
I would say three things. Quick: message, money, and messengers.
Message, money, and messengers. I would agree with that if you remove two of those things. Message and messengers. And if the money was going directly to the community, the Black community, the Black American community, I would totally agree if that was the case. But message, money, and messengers? Pay more people to run around and lie to the Black folk about what's been done for them. Pay more people to run around and lie to Black folk about what was done for them. Message, money, and messengers. We don't need no more Roland Martins running around here. We don't need no more Roland Martins running around here. You got all these folks trying to get their pockets filled. Their pockets filled. And if you fill my pockets, I could go tell these Negroes how good the Democratic Party is for you. If you fill my pockets, I could tell them, hey, don't you like seeing my pockets filled? I'm a Black woman. They fill my pockets, so we need to vote for them. Hey, don't you like seeing my pockets filled? I'm a Black cooning nigga. So shouldn't you like to see me shine? Shouldn't you want to see my pockets fat, my bank account stacked, and me getting all of that? Are you a pocket watcher? Or are you a pocket watcher? This is what these people are. This is exactly what these people are. They're moronic. They're living in psychoses. And they're trying to spread the psychoses. They're living in a world that's not grounded in reality.
To focus on literally, we have to shift the message that we need more money on the ground and that he needs trusted messengers that represent those constituency groups that are going out crafting the message that our communities need to hear to get motivated.
None of that matters because no matter who the hell you send out, no matter who the hell you send out, no matter who the hell you send out, what the hell the message is, if it's not about reparations, we don't give a damn. And when we're talking reparations, we're talking specific to the Black American community, the descendants of American slaves. And when we're talking reparations, we're talking direct cash payments. We're talking direct policy that benefits our community. Specifically, our community. Not underserved communities, not minority communities, not POC communities. The descendants of American slaves and our communities. That's who the policies need to benefit. Now we're going to move to these last few clips. There's only a couple left. And then we're going to get up out of here with my final thought. So let me put this in for you. One second. Let's see. I don't know what's going on here.
As details, President Biden heads into the new year with some pretty negative momentum, pretty low poll numbers, real questions on the Democratic base about his handling of the war. Some good news on the economy, but hasn't really broken through yet. As we take a step back and we're about to enter an election year, how do you see this?
Well, I think it's wide open. I think Trump can win. He can win in Pennsylvania. I can see the rural areas where it's been about 68% in those counties, 50-some counties, besides Pittsburgh and Philly, in that big middle T there. I can see them growing. I can see the minority vote sloughing off a bit. The women, of course, in the burbs can decide the thing on abortion rights. A real opportunity there to vote. I think the thing that Biden has to do is he's got to enlarge the youth vote and the minority vote. He's got to say to people, here's why you vote, and here's why it's important you vote.
No, what he needs to say is, here's what I'm going to do for you so you can vote for me. Here is the resources that I'm going to give to your community so that you can vote for me. This is what I'm going to sign into effect for you on day one so that you can vote for me. That's what needs to happen.
The power to vote, you have the power to protect your rights. Women can protect their rights through in Ohio cases like that, where you actually can see they will vote a way that shows that they're in power. How do you empower yourself? You vote. So he's got to connect democracy, which is a big word, to voting rights and people's rights, their own personal rights as young people, as minorities. You can protect your rights if you vote, but he's got to tie that together. And
notice, scare tactic after scare tactic. You can protect your rights if you vote. We are protecting our rights by withholding the vote, because everything else is getting taken from us anyway, whether it's resources, whether it's anything that has to benefit the Black community. They're literally taking things left and right. They just passed a bill that only applies to small businesses. And who have more small businesses than anybody at this time? Black Americans. Black folk. Black folk. Black folk. So understand what they do and how they do it.
He's got to make it optimistic about, and he also has to give a State of the Union address, which includes some opportunities. Now, I was trying to think about what brings together the college-educated young couple and the uncollege-educated ones that didn't go to college, higher education. It's probably housing, something as simple as we want to own a house someday. Something that the people in their 20s think, someday we're going to have a house, we're going to have kids, we're going to have a yard to play in, schools that are okay, and it's going to be okay, we're going to make it. But
none of that matters because we're not looking to unite with anybody if they're against our reparations, against our policies. So I wouldn't care if it came with housing and all this other bull stuff. Black Americans would still be at the backside of that whole policy there. So for us, none of that matters. None of it matters if you ain't cutting the check.
I have to get that sense of hope back. And I think the word hope is very important, just like it was with Barack Obama.
Certainly the State of the Union in a few months will be.
Notice they trying to get you guys back on the hope train. People all over the world, join hands. Jump on the hope train. The hope train. This is where we're at. Trying to get you on the same rhetoric that we already done got past.
The major set piece for the president. He's also going to start campaigning, looks like end of January, early February in South Carolina. Eugene Daniels, let's take Chris's point to you. This idea of the Democratic base, which those close to the Biden re-election team will privately acknowledge that they feel okay about some swing voters, but they know they have a base problem. And that is indeed, as Chris just said, young voters, progressives, voters of color. Tell us.
No. Black voters. It's the problem. They're base black voters.
What does the Biden team plan to do to bring them back? Those folks probably aren't going to vote for Donald Trump. The fear is, though, they might just stay home.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in South Carolina right now. I'm at my grandmother's house. We're kind of revitalized Biden's run in 2020. And so, the voters here, when you talk to them, right, the things that they think about the most are the fact that the kind of quote unquote black agenda, things like voting rights, police reform, things that disproportionately.
Voting rights and police reform is not a part of the black agenda. Well, police reform has always been a part of the black agenda, but voting rights is not a part of the black agenda. The black agenda is reparations and transformative policies for the black community. That's it. Transformative policies for the black community specifically. Voting rights isn't even on the damn list for the black agenda. The black agenda is reparations and transformative policies, specifically for the descendants of American slaves.
Impact African Americans in this country kind of got laid by the wayside, right? And that's not all Biden's fault, right? That is Congress's problem. There are all kinds. There's a filibuster in the Senate, but voters don't care about that. And I think what voters haven't heard from President Biden and Vice President Harris just yet is what does the next 4 years actually look like? What are you going to fight for? And finish the job. How? What are you going to do to make sure that people have stronger voting rights post 2025? What are you going to do about police reform post 2025? And how are you going to get past things like Congress, things like corporations, things like the courts that have stopped a lot of the things this president has wanted to do and tried to do over the last 4 years. What they're going to do, a lot of it seems to be going straight to these folks, right? We have been hearing from Democrats a lot that they have been wanting to see the Biden folks on the road more and more. And internally, they know that they have a salesman problem, that people are not listening, and more importantly, it's not breaking through. Right, that they want to talk about the things that they have done for people to kind of give them a report card on themselves. But the problem is people also want to know what happening next. So they have to figure out how to do that. But at this point, they're still trying to figure out how to sell what they've done. And that's been an issue for this White House, and they'll admit to you over the last since kind of like day one for them is that they've been
because what they selling, we ain't buying.
Able to sell their agenda to the American people.
Yeah. You know, Chris, listening to Eugene, it goes back to some of the things that we've been talking about over the last several weeks on this show and mine. Isn't it really a challenge, and I think you touched on it, for the Biden people to not only sell Joe Biden, who's a decent guy, whether I agreed with him or not for his whole career, he's always a decent guy against a despicable guy in Donald Trump, and I know both of them. Isn't it their task to tell people to vote their interests? It's not about Biden or Trump. It's about you. Do you want the right to choose? Do you want voting rights? Do you want student debt loans forgiven? Do you want to see police reform? Vote for yourself, and therefore you have to vote for Biden. I think the more they keep it between two personalities, that you have a turnout problem for Biden.
Stupid shit.
The more you make it self-interest, people will come out for themselves.
You're right. I mean, you're right. And I think about black voting in Philadelphia, where I grew up. And you know the history there. We had a very tough mayor and former police commissioner, Frank Rizzo. The largest black turnout, the largest registration in history, because the people said, I've got to vote to protect my family, my kids on the street. I've got to protect them from the police in some cases. And that got people to vote. We saw in Ohio where women, I guess mostly women, decided that here's a chance to protect abortion rights. And, you know, sometimes the Dobbs decision, for example, you think it's going to break it one way or break it the other way. Well, it broke it a totally different direction. Abortion rights was about trimesters during Roe v. Wade. It was very simple. You had more personal freedom in the beginning of your term, and then later more societal involvement and more restrictive. So that changed it to a freedom issue. The way people talk now about abortion is, do I have a personal freedom over my body or don't I? And in other words, the other way. They thought they were going to open it up to restrictions, that opened it the other way. And now I think much more of a freedom agenda. So when people vote for abortion rights, they're voting for personal freedom. And I think in the minority committee, just based on the history we've all learned, it's about voting rights. If you want real rights, you have to have voting rights. Of course, it was civil rights in 64, and then voting rights in 65 to lock it in. And if you couldn't vote in the South and counties like Birmingham or anywhere else, you weren't calling the shots. Now you're calling the shots. One thing we've learned on abortion rights, women and men together can decide on abortion rights, not the Supreme Court.
And black men and black women together can decide on who they want supporting or who they want to support, And we could decide who we would give our support to. And we've already decided the winner of that would be the person who brings us our tangibles, who pays the debt that was owed to us. Otherwise, our decision has been made.
You can go in and do, so Pennsylvania may have a more liberal view of the things, 20-some weeks or something, but they're going to vote on the issue. And I think the people who grew up in the collar counties of Philadelphia are going to decide the election. But I tell you, it's very tough because people that didn't go to college have a pretty good rage on their hands. That's what you really want in an election is a rage. It can be black rage or white rage or rural rage.
People who didn't go to college have the rage on their hands. Is this man saying that, college people who are educated by way of college or by way of these institutions are more intelligent and more left thinking? Because I attended college and I ain't having it. But okay.
In this case, it's rural race. They are so angry at the liberal establishment, the coastal elite. They look at people on television, they say, oh, those people on Saturday Night Live, those snarling rich kids, I know who they are. They're all trust funders. They don't have to worry about us. And the regular guy in the country goes, there they are snarling and making fun of us again. And every time we make fun of Trump, we're making fun of them. That's the weird, it's a weird thing. But in a way, it's like fighting terrorism. I mean, we think we just put the army in, or Israel just puts the IDF in, and they're going to solve the problem. It never solves the problem because you enrage people. And we did it with Afghanistan, and we did it with Iraq. We enraged the enemy to the point where they're more fiery than ever, and they hate us more than ever.
And you enraged black Americans by the dumb stuff that y'all did for the past 4 years. You enraged black Americans due to the shenanigans and chicanery that you guys have been pulling off for the past 4 years.
Armies don't make peace. And we think they do. And that's what this fight with the... How about the younger staffers at the White House joining the protests outside the White House against the president because they're rooting for the Palestinians? Wow. Right? And I don't think it's a right versus wrong. I think it's very complicated. But they think they're rooting for the young people of the world against the establishment of the world, just like the rural voter in Pennsylvania thinks they're voting against the establishment of the world. This is really tricky, this election.
Well, certainly. As details,
notice that this man basically made it was all about black voters. Now all of a sudden, he took it from black voters, right? And made it about younger generations versus the establishment. Young generations, young voters versus the establishment. No. It's black Americans versus everybody. Drop off the check. Period. That's what it is.
The re-election challenges for President Biden continue to widen. Yesterday, the House voted to formally initiate an impeachment inquiry, and his son opened himself up to additional legal peril by defying a congressional subpoena. Tonight, he's dealing with new and discouraging poll numbers. The president is White House correspondent Peter Doocy is live in North Lawn with that story. Good evening, Peter.
Brett, it's business as usual here at the White House. The first full day of the impeachment inquiry doesn't appear to have been too disruptive. President Biden kept to his plans, popping over to the NIH for an event about drug prices.
This has been a fight that I just started the other day when I was a 37-year-old senator.
For more years, a tough sell for a majority of Americans. 56% polled by AP say they'd be either very or somewhat dissatisfied with Biden as the nominee. Swing state numbers, also soft. In Michigan, 51% of Democrats would be satisfied with Biden on the ballot, only 27% enthusiastic.
I think that there is real work that has to be done in Michigan to tell the story of what the president has done.
Next up, a trip to battleground Wisconsin.
He's going to go to Milwaukee. He's going to talk about Bidenomics.
That's a head scratcher for strategists.
It's a basic fundamental principle of marketing. If you don't have a good product, don't put your name on it. And they don't have a good product with Biden economics, and they put their name on it.
There's also new palace intrigue as Politico reports Vice President Harris wants the White House to get tougher on Netanyahu and, quote, President Joe Biden is among the officials Harris has urged to show more sensitivity to Palestinian civilians, these people said.
Why does somebody around here leak that the vice president is upset with the president about Gaza?
That's a great question, because I mean, if I could answer a question why somebody would leak, I mean, that would make me pretty smart and a lot smarter than I am. She's part of the team. And if she wasn't offering her advice and counsel to the president on innumerable issues, that would be a story.
White House officials have been very critical of congressional lawmakers planning to go home this week without deals to fund Ukraine or change policy at the border. But President Biden's schedule is pretty light the rest of this week, too. At least what they're telling us he's going to do publicly tomorrow. Nothing on camera. All that's listed is the presidential daily briefing and lunch with the vice president. Right?
All right, so wanted to play the last clip just so you could see how The numbers are showing he's tanking, and the reason why is because of us. Because we're standing on our square, we're holding firm, we're not allowing them to come to us with no bull stuff, try to change our minds, try to change our opinions, try to change anything that we bring to them. This is not your job to change what we bring to you. Your job is to take what we bring to you and take it to the highest levels possible. If you are not doing that, then guess what? We're not rocking with you. If you don't respect our vote won't show up for you. If you don't respect the people that you need to become the next sitting president or to remain a sitting president, you're not getting our vote. It doesn't matter who it is. I wouldn't give a damn if Michelle Obama popped up. I really wouldn't care. But I'm pretty sure it would be the same way if Michelle Obama popped up tomorrow and decided to run. I guarantee you her numbers would be looking the same, if not worse. I mean, it ain't like she has any experience anyway. However, that's not the case. Black Americans are standing on our squares. That's it. And that's all. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get up out of here, family. If you have not, hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't hit the like button, make sure you're hitting the like button. That way, this video, this broadcast gets out to a multitude of people. Make sure you share. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this situation. Do the Democrats have a messaging problem? Or do they have a problem hearing the message? Peace, family.